Well, good evening, everybody in baseball land. Jesse here, along with my good co host, Doug, with another edition of Dirty Leather. It's World Series time. The first two games have been completed. What a great World Series we're watching so far. If you've been watching any of the World Series, you're watching a really, really great series. And if you're missing out, well, what are you doing? Just a great World Series so far. So again, welcome to the show. I don't really have anything to add, so we're going to get right into the weekly rant. And since Doug's Toronto Blue Jays are in the World Series, I'm going to have him start. So, what's your rant this week, Doug?
Well, my rant is anywhere from elation, excitement to a little bit of disappointment, and but no despair. I'm happy to report. I'm still very much on a high note from the performance of my Blue Jays, especially in Game One. But even in Game Two, there were some positives to extract from that game. But first and foremost, the city of Toronto has just been absolutely buzzing. It's been a hype machine for well over a week, and everyone is just in that just that shot of B12, citywide. It seems just the whole city is completely energized by what's been happening. Even people who are just fringe fans are all of a sudden becoming serious baseball fans, like informed opinions. You can hear people on the street just chatting one another up about baseball. Just awesome things happening that have never really happened before. So I'm just so thankful for this time to be living in Toronto, to be a fan, to be a Blue Jays fan. It's very much rewarding, regardless of the outcome of the World Series. It's been an absolute amazing run up till now. And like I said, I'm happy so far with the results. That 11-4 victory was a lopsided score, but it definitely wasn't a lopsided game, right? The Blue Jays had a blowout inning where Addison Barger had that phenomenal grand slam home run, which was the first time in World Series history that a pinch hitter, that there was a pinch hit home run for the first World Series at bat. Is that it? I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the record. So, yeah. So, first World Series at bat where it was a pinch hit at bat, and it was a home run and a grand slam. That's never happened before. So, Addison Barger set that record. And there was another record set after Game Two that we'll get to later in the show. But
Yeah,
just amazing
yeah,
back and
definitely.
forth.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just amazing back and forth excitement. Yeah, so my rant, I suppose, I had a little bit of a problem with some of the signage that we're seeing in Los Angeles as the series for Game 3 now shifts to LA. And in 1992, there was a controversy with the Canadian flag being flown upside down. Well, now the signage to welcome Game 3 in Los Angeles, I believe it's sponsored by a major credit card company, but the signage looks something like this. And you can see the Toronto Blue Jays sign. That was the universal sign that was sent out today for everyone to see. So, I don't know if that was intentional. Might have been a little bit of disregard for Toronto Blue Jays fans. But it's a reminder of 1992 and what happened in Atlanta with the turning over of the Canadian flag. So if that's an omen, then I'm happy to report the Blue Jays won that World Series, of course, in 1992, and they lost the first game that year, and they ended up coming back and winning in 6 games. So if having the Blue Jays sign is upside down is an omen, I will gladly accept that omen. Okay, so that's my first rant. A little bit of a weak move if it was intentional. If it was unintentional, then I'm calling, I guess, the Capital One PR department out and say, get your stuff correct, and please turn that sign over and acknowledge the mistake. My second rant is a little bit of a smear campaign that's going on in Twitter land towards our postseason hero, George Springer. And I'd really like that to stop because, well, first and foremost, George Springer is a great guy. You can't smear the character of someone who is really never projecting any negative energy at all. So what they're attributing this to, of course, is the 2017 World Series, where LA fans still to this day claim that Springer was one of the main culprits in the sign stealing scandal. Make what you will of that scandal. Some people think it was hardcore cheating. Others think it was perfectly legal gamesmanship. And I'll let the audience, the Dirty Leather audience, form their own opinion on that issue. But that was 8 years ago, and Springer was the World Series MVP. So far in the postseason this year, he's definitely up there with the Blue Jays, along with Vladdy, as the Blue Jays postseason MVP. So really, there's nothing left to smear with George Springer. And one more thing about him and about other players in this World Series, and MLB brought this up on their Twitter account today. How many future Hall of Famers do you think are playing in the World Series? Well, the obvious ones would be Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw. But then if you go down the list, I kind of created a list on my own, kind of tier two, who are very likely to get in. You got Freddie Freeman, but you've also got George Springer right alongside Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. In my opinion, he belongs right there in that tier two. So let's stop smearing George Springer, and then you can have a look at the other ones. Tier three, Yamamoto, especially with that performance, which we were talking about in the pre-show. Jesse and I were. That complete game performance, it was remarkable against a supercharged Blue Jays offense, right?
Yeah.
He shut them down. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, I put Yamamoto in that next tier because he's young. He's only 26 years old. The requirement for the Hall of Fame consideration or induction is 10 years. I'm sure he'll get there. And Bo Bichette, I'm sure he'll get there as well. And he'll probably be pushing the elusive 3,000 hits number at some point in his career. And then my last year was Will Smith, phenomenal hitter and an underrated hitter, really, right? When you think of the Dodgers, well, they're pretty good at playing catch and hitting the ball, but you don't think of Will Smith as one of their predominant hitters. Thank you. But he showed last night that he definitely is one of those with that upper deck home run off of Gosman, who was throwing an excellent game up until then. And then I put Alejandro Kirk in that conversation as well, along with Will Smith, who most certainly is deserving of the cleanup role currently in the Blue Jays lineup. So my rant, is it really a rant? I'm not really complaining, but just a few things that were on my mind that I thought I would bring up to start the show. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting World Series. Like I said, you've got all these potential Hall of Famers in this World Series. Just a beautiful one to watch. But we'll get to that shortly. As for my rant, I actually have two rants as well. So number one, this World Series in particular is going to be really good for baseball. And here's the reason why. This is the most exciting World Series we've had in a long time. Now, why do I say it's the most exciting? Well, number one, you have a team that everybody seems to love to hate outside of the Yankees, that being the Dodgers, because everybody really likes to make fun of the Dodgers and really point to the deferred contracts and point to the fact they seem to get every single free agent under the sun. And they had a really, really big free agency in 2024, 2025 with Roki Sasaki, getting Blake Snell, so on and so forth. And the year before that, they did get Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Then they did go out and get Otani. That before that, this is a team that's really built a major, almost fantasy dream-like lineup, rotation, whatever, entire roster essentially. So this is a team that that everybody loves to hate because this team is built really good and it's built with superstar after superstar after superstar. On the other side, you have a team that rose from the dead last year. Don't forget that team in 2024, they finished in last place essentially, the Toronto Blue Jays, for in the American League East. They were 74 and 88. That team had no offense. That team had very shaky pitching. They were again 74 and 88, dead last in the division. That team looked like it had squandered its window of opportunity. And there was conversation that this team was going to possibly look to sell if they couldn't get it together and possibly try to maybe get something for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if he didn't sign an extension. Now they did sign the extension, but there's also one thing you have to consider. They're under a new um, hitting coach this year. I forgot his name, unfortunately, but they bought him in this year. They fired the old hitting coach, brought in this new one, and this offense has turned around, especially in the postseason. This hitting coach has done a phenomenal job with utilizing the talent that they have and the existing players that they have, structuring the lineup, playing around with the lineup, maybe, shifting some guys around, so on and so forth. 94 and 68 record, the best record in baseball, home field advantage throughout the entire postseason, and one of the best offenses we've seen in a long time, if not the best offense, postseason offense that we've seen in a long time. And again, this is kind of unfortunately, even though this might be a little bit of a reach term, they are the underdog against a super Dodgers team that did struggle for this year. But since it's the Dodgers, everybody's rooting for the Blue Jays. I'm rooting for the Blue Jays, even as a Yankee fan, because I don't like the Dodgers. I'm not a big fan of Ohtani. I think Ohtani's really good, but I'm a Yankee fan, and the Dodgers, we have history, of course, especially when they were in Brooklyn. And the other thing is that a whole nation, Canada, is finally getting representation on the big stage after more than 30 years out of action in terms of the World Series. Don't forget, this is the first time that the Blue Jays have gone to the World Series since 1993. And again, they are the lone representation of baseball in the country because, again, don't forget, Montreal Expos are no longer there, haven't been there for 20 years. So it's really nice to see, a nice actual World Series, quote unquote, because there's an actual Canadian team on the big stage. But again, the other thing is that the top tier prospects from the Blue Jays, Bo Bichette back in 2018, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. back in 2019, a whole bunch of other guys after the fact, finally performing at their levels, finally get to see them in big time situations, big time games. Really, really good. And they played phenomenally, especially after getting over the hump that was the wild card round, essentially bypassing it this year by, again, securing the division and, again, having a really good fight against the Mariners, and then easily taking out the Yankees. Easily took out the Yankees. So this has been a really, really fun team to watch. And again, with a more grand scale, this is the best viewership for the playoffs in the MLB since 2017. Apparently, this is a 13% increase year over year for the playoffs in terms of viewership. So people are watching because there's a lot of young teams, there's a lot of good teams, there's a lot of young players that are really emerging. And again, one player that I really want to hone in on that a lot of people are watching when they're tuning in, and you've talked about this extensively, Doug. You talked about him extensively, Trey Savage, who has pitched phenomenally. And he's pitched phenomenally within the postseason. Did have one bad game, but rebounded relatively nicely. And of course, you have people hate watching the Dodgers. So it's a really, really good World Series. You got a lot of people that are just watching this World Series intensely. They
Yeah,
really, really want to see what happens. And this may very well go down to the wire. So we're actually going to segue into our next subject, that being the recap of game one. What a mess that Dodger bullpen turned into in the sixth inning. That Toronto offense, when they are on a roll, they are on a roll. And when they exploit a bullpen for its mistakes, they will jump all over it. I watched game one intensely. I watched it through and through. And for Trey Savage, and let's just go over the history of Trey Savage this year. This is a kid that started his 2025 season in single A, not high A, single A. And the attendance for his first game was about 350. That's a small ballpark. And,
yeah,
not it seemed like he was going to be, maybe a year away, 2 years away, depending on his development. And he pitched well enough to go to single A, double A,
he
triple
did.
A, and then get
Yeah,
called up in September.
yeah,
Uh, and then,
yeah,
he pitched phenomenally in the championship series. Again, he did have a little bit of a stinker here, one game, but he rebounded nicely, especially with the first game. When
yeah,
Trey Savage took that mound and struck out Shohei Ohtani to begin the World Series, that was a statement by Toronto saying, you know what? We want to win. We want to play.
yeah,
Because the one thing that I did allude to in my article for Stadium Rant, just before the World Series, you have to stop Shohei Ohtani. You cannot let him get on base, can't let him get walks, can't let him hit home runs because he is the spark plug and he's usually going to be batting leadoff. And if you give a home run up to him at leadoff, guess what? It's 1-0 with no run, with no outs. And
Mhm.
suddenly you're in the hole or very early in the game. Again, for your Savage to go out on the mound and strike him out for the first go around, that's a statement. That was a really big statement. And
Well, that
again,
was the
let's
first
really
look.
just talk.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
the first look that any of those guys had of Trey Savage, right? Now, his release
Yes.
point, I don't know if you know this. I think Fox alluded to this, the Fox broadcast team, which is John Smoltz, I think, pointed this out. His release point is over 7 feet in the air. So we're talking like 12 o'clock all the way down to 6 o'clock, right? And then the major
Mhm.
league average is more of like a 3/4 angle, in which case, when you factor in the front lunge, it's almost like a squat upon release, like a front lunge squat.
Yep.
It's about 5 feet 8 inches. So that difference, the major league average 5'8" to over 7 feet, where you Savage is letting that ball go. I mean, that's an unbelievable difference. And when you got a splitter with that level of depth coming straight down and then the bottom dropping out at the bottom of the zone, like none of these guys have ever seen a pitch like that before. So it took them a
Yep.
while to make the adjustment. Some of them did, like when he left the splitter up a little bit higher in the zone, but he certainly got the job done. Like Savage in game one of the World Series, getting the ball as a rookie, like you said, Jesse, coming up from A ball at the start of the season, and just a little over a year ago, he was pitching in college for East Carolina, right? So his journey
Yep.
throughout the course of the year to be able to pitch game one of the World Series and just to keep the Blue Jays in the ball game for 4 innings was truly remarkable. But I think that when he finds his stride and really gets into the zone and gets a rhythm going, he's going to be a phenomenal pitcher in MLB.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have no disagreement there whatsoever. I think he's going to be a great pitcher. I think he's going to have a very long career, a very phenomenal career. Hall of Fame worthy. I'm not sure. It's obviously too early to even suggest that, but he's going to be a pitcher to watch for Toronto going forward. Now, switching over to the offense for that game. Now, don't forget, most of the runs that Toronto scored was in that very, very explosive sixth inning. It was a 2-2 ball game through and through. And don't forget, uh, the Dodgers scored first on a Kike Hernandez single to center field, and then scored again on a Will Smith single to right field. So it was 2-0. Then in the bottom of the fourth, you had Dalton Varsho hit that game tying home run
And
off
we
of
need to
Blake
point out,
Snell.
yeah, you need to point out, well, you might have anyway, but that's well over a year since Snell has given up a home run to a left-handed batter. So
Yes.
Varsho, who normally struggles against lefties, ends up hitting a 2-run homer against the toughest lefty in baseball. So that was a phenomenal
Mhm.
moment. And the city was just electric with, well, the stadium was just absolutely ballistic when that happened. So
Yeah.
that was an unbelievable moment, but certainly that was a segue of what was to come. So go ahead if you want to explain.
Yeah. And then again, you had in the bottom of the sixth, that's when the bottom really fell out. Blake Snell threw a walk, gave up a single, and then hit Barcho with a pitch unintentionally, of course. And then you had Dave Roberts come out to the mound, take Snell out of the game, and then put Emmett Sheehan. Now, don't forget that bullpen wasn't really used in the National League Championship Series. They had fantastic starting pitching. They had really no need to go to their bullpen, except for maybe like a certain situation here or there. But from my understanding, only four relievers were used from the Dodger bullpen in the National League Championship Series, which is a testament to how good that starting lineup
Well,
was, or that
I didn't
starting
get
rotation was.
I didn't get the move of going to Sheehan because similar to what the Jays did, I think earlier in the playoffs, not against the Mariners, but against, was it against the Mariners? It may have been early in the
I
Mariners
believe so.
series where they someone like Bassett on the Jays side and someone like Sheehan on the Dodgers side, like those guys are excellent starting pitchers. And for any other team, they would be, number 3, number 4 in the rotation at least. So a starting pitcher, if you're going to put them in the long relief role, they need clean innings. They got to come out fresh to start an inning. And Sheehan came into a very high leverage situation, right? It was not a clean inning that he was given. So I didn't get that move. And it seems like you were probably in disagreement with that move as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't understand the move from Snell to Sheehan. I think that Snell could have easily faced possibly 1, 2 more batters, try to get out of
Yeah,
the inning. Because
definitely.
don't forget, his pitch count was starting to creep up. I think it was starting to creep up toward 100. But in that situation, you have to let your starting pitcher work through the lineup again, especially a third time over. Because again, he was going to be facing Ernie Clement, Nathan Lukes, Andres Jimenez, who's been quite good this postseason. Had a really bad regular season, but has played great this postseason. So why not leave Snell in and just let him face, the lineup second time, third time? Just try to let him work through it. Because all you need was a strikeout and a double play ground ball. That's really all you needed. Emmett Sheehan, I don't even think saw the mound. If he did see the mound in the championship series, it was very short.
No,
It
he
was
did. And
very short.
he was effective against Milwaukee, but again, he had a clean inning every time. So if you put them in, they had the lead each and every time he went in, and it wasn't high leverage. So, he just went about his business. And that's how the Jays are using Bassett in a similar role. But I didn't understand putting Sheehan into that high leverage situation, very much a high leverage situation, and it backfired. It just didn't seem the right move. And I don't think the Jays would do that with Bassett, to be honest. You need your leverage guys for those situations.
No,
Sheehan does not qualify for that role.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. And then again, they had go ahead. I apologize.
No, that's okay. And I just didn't understand. I don't think that Roberts will do that again. Like even Kike Hernandez in a post-game interview last night, he said, yeah, game 1 was weird. It was a weird game. And, we ended up losing the game. Now, he didn't go into detail, but when he says the word weird, that's what he's talking about, right? I mean, situations like Sheehan going into an inning where he really shouldn't be there. I mean, Hernandez referred to that game as being weird. It was a weird game. There were some weird decisions being made on by Roberts.
Yeah, and then again, one of the other decisions he made in that. Yeah, of course. And again, one of the things he also did do in that 6th inning was that Emmett Sheehan actually got George Springer, and we know that George Springer is a very, very good postseason player. He ends up getting him out on a ground ball, and throws a runner out at home. So now you're thinking, oh, maybe he has a way out, limit the damage to only 3 runs. Maybe the Dodgers can get back in the game. But for whatever reason, he decides to take out Sheehan and then put in Anthony Banda. And Banda was effective during the National League Championship Series. He appeared twice, got a couple of outs, but he also had he had a relatively decent outing. Not the most clean, not the greatest, but he was decent enough. He helped lock down the game. But to put him in against, now again, he was going to be going against David Schneider before they substituted him with Addison Barger. And I said in champion, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think, Barger was going to pinch hit for Schneider in thinking that a right-hander was going to come in for the Dodgers, not Anthony Banda, right?
Yep.
But then Banda came in, and they still went with Barger. They still went with Barger in that situation, in which case he hit a grand slam. Now, Barger typically doesn't do well against lefties, but I think he did perfectly fine against Anthony Banda, right? I mean, facing Anthony Banda is different than facing Blake Snell, right? So they I guess went with their gut and still went with Barger in that situation, even though Banda the lefty came in. And man, oh man, did that ever pay off? I don't know if you saw Dan Plesac call that home run the day before. He went on and said that Barger, if he goes in there as a pinch hitter, is going to do something magical. He's going to have a big impact, and he's going to hit a home run in a key situation. And lo and behold, he came in and did, that and much, much more. So
Yep.
yeah, that was crazy, man. Because typically Schneider would have left uh, John Schneider would have left Davis Schneider in to hit in that situation. But I guess Davis Schneider just kind of looked really, really foolish in his at bats against Snell earlier in the game, right?
Yep.
That maybe he just thought Barger would have a better look at the lefty coming in. Maybe Davis Schneider, given it was his first start in the postseason, game one of the World Series, his very first start, and he was hitting in the 2 slot, starting in left field, which was, I wasn't
Hmm.
too sure about that move. That was really instilling a lot of confidence in Davis Schneider, which I guess good for them. They believe in him, but I found it surprising to see Schneider at the top of the lineup. I thought Clement, the way that he's been hitting all postseason, he's hitting well into the 400s, that maybe he
Yep.
would have alternated and you put Schneider at the bottom of the lineup and put Clement at the top. But I guess they just didn't really want to disrupt the flow of the lineup as it's been going all postseason long. But yeah,
Yeah.
they inserted Davis Schneider into the lineup, and I don't know, to be honest, that you'll see Schneider in any other role other than a late pinch hit role for the rest of the series. I love Davis Schneider, but I don't think the Jays can afford to have a guy who's not really going to have an impact. And Davis Schneider can have an impact, but given the choice, even
Hmm.
against a lefty, of having Schneider or Barger in the lineup or Nathan Lucas in the lineup, I'm going to take Barger and Lucas over Davis Schneider any day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, David Schneider, I think, can be a really good hitter at points. But if you need a really big hit, you need a really big play. Barger might be the better option. And I said in the American League Championship Series that Barger was going to be an X factor for that series and beyond. And lo and behold, he hits a grand slam to essentially put the game out of reach. Kirk then hits a home run later that inning. And of course,
Yeah,
Shohei Ohtani hits a home run the next inning because why not? And then that's essentially the score. 11-4 the was the score for Game One, and Toronto suddenly had a 1-0 game lead against the Dodgers. Now switching over to Game Two, that was essentially a must win for the Dodgers because you cannot go back to Dodger Stadium with a 2-0 deficit in terms of games. You have
well,
to
you
win
can't.
game two. You
Well,
have
you
to take at
can. I
least
mean,
one.
look at what the Jays did in the ALCS, right? I mean, they lost the
Mhm.
first two at home and then pushed it to Game 7 in what ended up being like a magical, super exciting series, and they ended up winning it. But I agree. I mean, I wouldn't call it a must win, but it's definitely a convenient win, you know. But
It
anyway,
is
go
a
ahead.
convenient, at least at the very least a convenient win. It has
Yeah,
to be a convenient win because again, you cannot be in the World Series with a 2-0 deficit. Now, again, you would be going home, so it would, help you a little bit for those next three games. But going 2-0 or going into a 2-0 hole in the World Series after the first two games, not a good position that you wanted to be in.
fair
So
enough.
they
Fair
absolutely
enough.
needed a good start from
Yeah,
Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And I said again in my article for Stadium Rant, the Dodgers starting rotation must perform that with the way that it has been, especially in the National League Championship Series. And he pitched he pitched a complete game again, Yamamoto. Now, a fun fact, that is the first time Yamamoto has, for the first time in about 24 years, pitched back-to-back complete game starts in the entire postseason. The last one to do it was Kurt Schilling in 2001 with the Diamondbacks, essentially. I believe it was the Diamondbacks. I might be mistaken. But yeah, it was the Diamondbacks, excuse me.
yeah. 01
But
would have been
it
Schilling would
was,
have been with the D-backs, and then he went over to Boston after that. But he was
yep.
phenomenal with the D-backs
And
and then later with Boston. So shout out Kurt Schilling.
yes, it was. Yeah, shout out to Kurt Schilling, obviously. But again, Yamamoto has been essentially fantastic over the postseason. Essentially, he was great during the regular season. He is phenomenal this postseason. I mean, there's no way you can really brush around that fact. He had one mistake, or he did run into some trouble early in the game, where he did have runners at the corners with nobody out when Springer hit a double, and then Nathan Lukes came in and then hit a single the other way, or to left field, excuse me, to move George Springer to third. So it was
Yeah.
runners on the course, 0 out. To get that strikeout essentially at the on the bottom of the first against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was really big, because that's the way that you have to get out of an inning. Get the strikeout with runners at the corners, and then suddenly the double play comes into effect. So he escaped with no damage whatsoever after the fact. Didn't get the double play ball, but he got two outs in essentially the infield. So really, really decent
Yeah.
pitching from Yamamoto to get out of there.
It was phenomenal, and just having a look at his curveball, not only the break of that curveball, but the command of that curveball and how he's able to mix it in with his fastball command. His fastball is up around 97, 98 miles an hour, and of course he's got pinpoint control. And then he throws that knee buckling curve that comes in at about 79, 80 miles an hour. So there's nobody else in MLB that can command two pitches the way that he can. Those two pitches the
Yes.
way that he can.
Yeah.
And then he's got a lethal changeup as well. And then I saw him throw a cutter. Like the cutter comes in at about 93, 94. And that's like Mariano Rivera style, carving the edges of the zone. So it's almost like he elevates his ability. Well, he definitely elevates his ability in big games. We talked about that in the pre-show. But as far as big game pitchers go in MLB for this season and last, there is nobody better than Yamamoto. Like he's got to be the number one guy
Mm-hmm.
to take the ball in big game situations when your team needs a win. He's just unbelievable. And he can slow the game down too. At one point,
Yeah.
the crowd in the Rogers Center, of course, is electric and super, super loud. But he was so methodical and went about his business and his routine. I saw him in the first inning when Gosman was up pitching to the Dodgers, and he's sitting in the dugout and he's taking handwritten notes, like in a notepad. Like he's next level meticulous. Now,
Yes.
a lot of that comes from the fundamentals of baseball that are so rigorously taught in Japan. I played some baseball. I played against Japanese teams, and you can see how organized and how disciplined they are. But Yamamoto really epitomizes that to the nth degree. Like he is the epitome of Japanese baseball, the structure of it, the discipline, and it's so impressive to watch. So unbelievable performance. And
Yeah.
I'm just glad
Yeah.
that
He is. He
the
is.
Jays have a few days. Well, I mean, potentially if it goes to game 7, they're going to have to see him again. But as it stands, they at least don't have to see him for a few games anyway. Unless he makes an appearance.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, that's why it's so important. That's
Yeah.
that. That's why it's so important for the Blue Jays, essentially in their sense, to not let a game to get to a game 7, because you would have to face them again in game 7, and that's again a win or go home situation. That's the last game of the year
Yeah.
in baseball in general.
Yeah.
So
So
you have
and
to win.
they clearly got the edge if it goes to game 7 and you're giving the ball to Yamamoto and we've got Gosman, going for us. Clearly they have the edge. But, like I said at the beginning, like what is baseball, right? You hit the ball, you play catch. Like you can give all the accolades in the world to someone like Yamamoto, but at some point you just have to play the game. Yes, the guy's amazing, right? But the Blue Jays just have to keep grinding out at bats the way they know how to do. I think they're going to get to Glasnow. I really do. Ohtani, man, that's the X factor because his pitching ability
Yes.
so far in the playoffs has been as good as Yamamoto. He's got a similar arsenal, right? So
Yes.
the Blue Jays have to win that game against Glasnow. And I don't know if you want to move ahead to game 3 or if you have anything more to add, Jesse, about the game 2 analysis and what you saw.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, let's be completely clear. I mean, there's really nothing to add outside of Yamamoto essentially dominating that entire Blue Jays lineup. And that's, again, a very big feat, especially given the fact that Toronto has one of the best offenses in postseason history, with just outright slaughter of teams and pitching staffs and so on and so forth. Now, again, you could point to some of those games against in the American League Championship Series to say they were not very good, but when it really mattered, they played exceptionally well. So I don't think there's really anything else to add. But yeah, moving on to Game 3 and Game 4 of the World Series. I mean, the lineup we're going to have essentially back and forth. This series can go either way in Los Angeles. Again, when you look at some of the matchups that are going to happen. Shohei Ohtani will obviously take the mound in Game 3, of course, because it's Dodger Stadium and Shohei Ohtani, and Game 3 can be an easily pivotal game, and you need your best up there. So why not turn to Shohei Ohtani? And for the Blue Jays, they will turn to the veteran Max Scherzer in Game 3. Now, Max Scherzer, again, I have had a bit of concern with regards to some of his performances in the regular season and the postseason this year. He's been up and down
Just
in his,
just
age
a quick
41
correction.
season. I still
Just
think
a
he's a
quick
very good pitcher. I still think he's a very clutch pitcher.
Yeah, he
Yep.
is. Just a quick correction. They are the Dodgers, as I see it anyway, unless there's been a change of plan. They are going with Glasnow as their starter for Game 3, not Ohtani. They're not going with Ohtani for Game 3.
Ah,
I mean, unless you've seen
okay.
an
So
update
that's
that I
that's
haven't
very
seen.
interesting.
Yeah, as I saw it, they're going Glasnow against Scherzer. So that's why I was saying the Blue Jays, they have to get this game against Glasnow because
Uh,
unless there's been a change, I mean, there could be a
no,
change,
that
but
there has
as
there
it's
has
listed right now, they've got Glasnow going.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I was reading some old information. It will be Glass now in Game 3, which is very interesting. I still believe that in a Game 3 situation, you might want to try to turn the tides with your best pitcher, that being Otani, or your next
I would
available
agree.
pitcher, which would be Otani.
I would agree
But
with that.
in terms of if things are not going your way, if Toronto's offense starts getting really heated in Game 3, and you're down 2-1 in the series in Game 4, then maybe you could move to Otani if it gets to that point. So again, it can really go either way because again, lest we forget, the Dodgers rotation is very good when it is on points. Glass now is very good when he is not injured. Otani is Shohei Otani. Yamamoto, we just talked about him. Blake Snell, when he is on point, he is very good on the mound. He is, again, this rotation is very, very good. It operates at a very high level. Now, again, now just looking over the Max Scherzer, as I was stating previously, Max Scherzer, again, I did have a little bit of concern with the Blue Jays possibly putting Max Scherzer in Game 3 because he has been a little volatile. He has had some good performances. He's had some really bad performances in the regular season. And he has pitched relatively well in the postseason for the most part. I think, turning the ball over to a veteran who has pitched in a World Series previously with the Washington Nationals. And again, that was a wild card team going against the juggernaut Houston Astros at the time, plus a trash can. Uh, really, really, solid move on the Blue Jays' part. I think they're going to, I think they're going to might get a very vintage performance from Max Scherzer because again, he has again pitched with the Dodgers previously. He has gone against the Dodgers so many times in the past, and he knows that lineup relatively well, at least to a certain extent. He doesn't know all the players and their hitting repertoire to a T, but he has played against in Dodger Stadium, excuse me, for the better part of the last 15 years. So he knows that environment. He thrives in those types of environments. He performs at his best in very high pressure situations. So it's going to be a really interesting Game 3. So what do you think, Doug? Do you think the Blue Jays take a 2-1 lead in the series?
Well, I don't think the environment and the hype surrounding the start is going to phase Scherzer one bit. He's been there so many times. This is just like another game for him. Although, he normally gets amped up, right? I mean, it could be a start in the middle of May and he's still going to get amped up for it, right? That's just his personality. But the environment itself and the situation itself, I don't think is going to phase him. I think he's going to be all business. And as long as he hits his spots, he's got to live around the perimeter of the zone, just like Shane Bieber does, because he doesn't have that velocity
Yeah.
that he used to have. He does not have overpowering stuff. That said, in that game against the Mariners, he was able to hit 96. So he hit some velo that we haven't seen from him since 2019. So if that Max Scherzer returns, then he could keep the Jays in the ball game. I don't think he's going to be dominant, but if he could, you know, show up and check in with 5 innings, keep the Dodgers at bay with 1 or 2 runs, perhaps, I believe the Jays will get to Glasnow. I think that they're very, very capable
Yeah.
of grinding out at bats, and Glasnow at times in those high pitch count outings, you know, he can walk people. He's prone to some walks. So if the Blue Jays are able to take advantage of
Hmm.
that, which they weren't against Yamamoto, they had a couple of situations that they could have taken advantage of some walks, right? Because Yamamoto was great. He wasn't perfect, but he was great. But there were a couple of situations
Yeah.
where the Blue Jays could have taken advantage. They had a runner on third, and they were not able to capitalize. So at this point in the postseason, where it's do or die, they have to capitalize on those situations where they've got, let's say, a leadoff double, a leadoff walk, you know, a runner in scoring position with less than 2 out. They've got to score that guy. And if they do against Glasnow, I think they'll win the game. I do think they'll take game 3. I think they'll take game 3. And they just got to take it one day at a time, because looking too far ahead against Ohtani, man, there's got to be a little bit of an intimidation factor going against a pitcher like
Yeah.
Ohtani, which there is no pitcher like Ohtani, right? And these guys, most of the lineup, they've never seen Ohtani at all. They've never faced him. So as long as they don't look too far ahead, they take it one day at a time, just hit the ball and play catch. I think they'll get to Glasnow and they'll take game 3.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And if they are going to take game 3, it's going to be on the back of drawing enough walks from Tyler Glasnow. Because don't forget, Tyler Glasnow has a walk rate of 12, which is quite high for
Oh,
the
yeah.
major league average among starting pitchers. Uh, so again, but to counteract that, he does have a strikeout rate of 29%. So if you are going to win and get runners on base, it will have to be, primarily through walks, and you will have to, capitalize on mistakes that he makes with a pitch, whether it be, middle of the zone, up in the zone, upstairs in the zone, so on and so forth. It's really going to come down to, taking advantage of those little mistakes that he is going to make in terms of his control, because it does seem like, he is able to, have enough spin to, have his batting average rate relatively low, his expected slugging rate to be relatively low. But if he has issues with command and location, and he, has issues with hitting the zone, getting hitters to bite at pitches that might be close to the zone that are called balls, that's going to stack on really quickly. And again, like we saw in game 1, if the Dodgers have to turn to their bullpen early in in a game, that could be trouble, because we just saw what they could do when they are on a roll in a single inning. Now, again, going back to game 1, that was not over the course of the game. That was one single inning. They did all that damage. But again, all it takes is one bad mistake for the snowball effect to really happen. So we'll see what happens. But if Glasnow wants to win game 3, or the Dodgers want to win game 3, they need Glasnow to go an extensive amount, whether it be 7 innings, maybe 8 innings if you need to, but also keep the walk rate down. If he can
Yeah.
keep the walk rate down, they have a chance. If they can't, there's going to be trouble. Now,
Well, they
moving
do.
over
And
on the game. Yep.
The Blue Jays offense, they're going to be aggressive. They're not going to sit back and, wait for Glasnow to crack or wait for Glasnow to issue walks. Like, that offense they're going to just bang out at bats, and you're going to see pitch counts escalate early in that game against Glasnow, I think. Like, the goal of the Blue Jays is obviously to get to the Dodgers bullpen, right? And
Mhm.
Roberts wants these starting pitchers to go 6, 7, potentially 8 innings or further, right?
Yes.
Which is what we saw yesterday. Do you see Glasnow going 7, 8 innings against the Blue Jays? I don't see it. I definitely don't see it. So I think he's going to be effective. Glasnow's a great pitcher, but I don't think he's going to go beyond 5 innings. So in which case
Mm.
you're looking at a bullpen scenario, and the Blue Jays will get to the Dodgers bullpen. It's just inevitable. They're going to get to them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
unless we haven't seen Sasaki yet, I've been told he's got great stuff. I've seen little snippets of him in that series, the sweep against the Brewers, but we don't really have a great sample size of Roki Sasaki. We assume he's dominant. We've heard it, but certainly the rest of the Dodgers bullpen is very, very hittable. And the Blue Jays, that's their goal. They want to get to that bullpen as early as possible.
Yes, and again, I think that plays into Game 4 as well when Otani does take the mound against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's going to be the big question mark for Otani's pitching performance. How long can you stretch him out without, tiring out too much? Because don't forget, he also hits really well, but at the same time, if he has to get on base, he's going to have to do some base running. He's going to have to run the bases, especially on ground balls, line drives, fly balls. So that's also going to be a consideration into how he performs or how long he's out there in Game 4. If the Blue Jays again do the same thing, rack up the pitch count, with very competitive at bats like they did in Game 1, work the count in their favor, maybe draw some walks, hit a couple of singles and doubles, stack on the hits in a consecutive manner. They might have to take Otani out of the game really early, at least in the pitching sense. He can still play as a designated hitter, but in the pitching sense, he might have to be taken out early if he can't hit his stuff.
Yeah,
Now, again, that's a big if. If
that
they
would be
have, yep,
unbelievable. That would be shocking to see if the Blue Jays could get to Otani early in the game. Like that would be just earth-shattering sports news. It would be headlines everywhere if they could knock Otani out of the game early. I mean, that would just be incredible because on paper, it's pretty intimidating when you see Shohei Otani versus Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber is a good pitcher, but he has not been great lately. He hasn't been great in the postseason. So I don't like that matchup. I don't think that matchup favors the Blue Jays at all. So if somehow the Blue Jays could string out at bats against Otani in Game 4 and knock him out of the game early, and Bieber puts in a quality start and goes 5 or 6 innings, that would just blow my mind. I mean, it could happen, but that would just be an absolute headline sports story everywhere. So that would be super, super exciting. But that's why they play the game, right? That's why we play baseball. Anything can happen. Odds are it won't happen that way, but they got to play it out. We'll see what happens.
Hence why I put the word if at the beginning, because it's a big if. If
Big
they're
if.
able to string hits, if they're able to, work the count in their favor, if they're able to tire Otani out relatively early, so on and so forth. Because again, going back to the article that I wrote, your number one priority at the moment for the Blue Jays is to stop Shohei Otani at all costs, both offensively and pitching wise.
Right.
If you're able to knock him out early in Game 4, you're in a good spot.
One
For
thing
that game at least.
One thing I've never seen is, we've all seen Otani last week or at other times have a phenomenal pitching performance, and he was equally as great or greater as a hitter, right? I mean, in that historic game last week where he had 10 Ks across, 7 innings, and then he hit 3 home runs. So he seems to couple an outstanding pitching performance with an equally as impressive hitting performance.
Looks like we hit a little bit of a dead patch here. Doug, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, it looks like I can't hear Doug, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
Can
you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I was going to say,
Yep.
Otani, we've all seen performances, very recently, obviously, in the NLCS where he was phenomenal in terms of pitching. He had 10 Ks. He threw, 7 innings? And then he hit those 3 home runs. I've seen outings where he was with the Angels where he had a phenomenal pitching performance and was equally as good or greater offensively in terms of hitting. I've never seen him get pulled out of the ball game early after a poor pitching performance and then go on to have an excellent hitting performance. I've never seen that. So I have to believe that if he's going to be pulled out of the game early, or if the Blue Jays offense somehow gets to him, even though he stays in the game offensively, I don't think he's going to be as effective offensively. It seems to me like it's
That's
one and the same most of the time. If he's great pitching, he's going to have a great offensive performance as well. So if they get to him as a pitcher, I mean, it's unlikely, but if they happen to get to him, then, hopefully that translates as a Jays fan. Hopefully that translates to him not being as effective offensively as well, but we'll see. You okay? Jess, you there?
all right. So, yeah, excuse me. There's a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if the glitch is on my side or if it's on your side, but we were just talking about Ohtani and his dominant pitching performances. It seems to be coupled most of the time, even going back to his Angels days. The dominant pitching performances seem to be coupled
Yep.
with some effective or strong hitting performances as well. So it would be super interesting to see because of the Ohtani rule, where if he gets yanked as a pitcher, he can stay in the game as a DH. It would be super interesting to see if he's able to rebound. I mean, it would be a huge psychological rebound it would have to be from a poor pitching performance and still check in with an effective, impactful offensive performance. That would be remarkable to see. So I've never seen it. We'll see if it happens. But I mean, this World
We'll see.
Series so far is packed with things that we've never seen before. So
Yes,
we'll see.
yes, definitely. I mean, we have seen a lot of things that we have never seen before. We saw a pinch hit grand slam. We are going to see for the first time in a long time, if not entire MLB history, a player hit and pitch in the same game or start a game on the mound and hit in the same game. It probably has been a long time. Probably has happened before, but it's been a long time since
Well,
that happened.
Babe
Uh,
Ruth would be the only one I can think of who. I mean, of course, pitchers hit prior to the DH rule being implemented.
yep,
But in terms of a pitcher
definitely.
being like an impactful hitter in the heart of the batting order, I mean, you have to go back to the early dead ball era type days, right?
Yep. Yep, definitely. I mean, again, this is a very exciting World Series. I mean, there's so much that, that's being broadcasted and we're watching. And if you're not watching the World Series, then, well, what are you doing? I mean,
I know, right?
game three is tomorrow, Monday evening. Game four is Tuesday evening. And game five is Wednesday evening, if I'm correct. And then it will switch back to Toronto if it gets that far, of course. And then, it's going to be a really interesting series if it goes back to Toronto. But I do want to end off with one other question for the both of us, and that is who at this point is in the best position to win at least the next three games at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. So I'll start with that. I still believe that Toronto is in a very good position to win at least the next two or three games. And the reason I say that is because that offense, again, really turns on and it really will pick apart mistakes. Again, we saw it in game one with again them turning to the bullpen, the Dodgers turning to the bullpen in the sixth inning, and the Blue Jays essentially just going essentially nuking the Dodger bullpen to orbit, for lack of better terms, for 9 runs, and it was essentially put the game away. That team could be very dangerous offensive wise. Now, again, uh, you can also make the argument that, and again, this is one of the reasons why I call this World Series the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Very good Toronto offense, very good Dodger pitching rotation. However, I think the offense is just very potent. I think it can be extremely overwhelming, and I think that they are going to look to come alive essentially in Los Angeles against Glass now, maybe against Shohei Ohtani, but we'll see. And whoever the game five starter is, I think they're going to take 2 out of 3 games, and I think the series will go back to Toronto with them in a very good spot to win Game 6 and win the World Series. So I'm very optimistic that the Blue Jays, Toronto Blue Jays, will prevent a back-to-back for the Los Angeles Dodgers. What do you think, Doug? Do you agree with me, or do you think otherwise?
Well, I would agree with you. I think that the Blue Jays have an amazing ability to chunk these games into what would otherwise be just a regular season series. And John Schneider has emphasized that many times, and so have the players. And they've said, just win the series, not win the World Series, but win a 3-game series. So if they approach these 3 games with that mindset, I think they'll prevail. I think they'll take 2 of 3. And then, of course, we've got an amazing series continuing, right? Coming back to Toronto. So I think the Blue Jays, like you, Jesse, are fully capable of that. And I wanted to point out one thing in the last game where Yamamoto threw that absolute gem. And you talk about nukes. Well, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit an absolute torched nuke off the left field wall that hit the middle of the wall. It never rose above about 6 feet the whole way. Most ballparks, that's a bomb. That would have been a home run, in which case it would have been a 2-run homer and the Blue Jays would have been up 3-1 at that point, right? They would have had a 3-1 lead. Instead, they ended up losing 5-1, but had that ball left the yard, we'd be having a totally different conversation today,
Yes.
perhaps, right?
Yeah.
So, these things can change in the blink of an eye, but I really believe that, like you, Jesse, the Jays are fully capable of taking 2 of 3, and that's the way that they're going to view this series, is as if it would be just another regular season series. I don't like
Yes.
that matchup with Ohtani and Bieber, though, as I've said before. If the Blue Jays take that one, I'll be surprised, but I do think they'll take the 2 of 3 in LA.
Well, let's just talk about Game 4 really quickly and the what if. If they take Game 4, let's stay for this. Let's just say that Toronto does take Game 3. Let's say they make easy work of the Dodgers in Game 3. If they go and win Game 4 against Shohei Ohtani, suddenly they're up 3 games to 1, and then suddenly Los Angeles is in a really desperate spot, and then you really have to consider, who you want to put on the mound. Do you because it would likely have to be uh it would have to be someone that I can't think of anybody off the top of my head at the moment, but you would really have to get creative in that game. You would really have to dig very deep into either A, your bullpen, or B, anybody in your rotation that has not been used. So you really, really have to, in that situation, uh dig deep and get really creative with who you're starting, what your bullpen's going to look like, how your lineup's even going to look in a Game 5 situation if you're down 3 games to 1. But again, the onus, unfortunately, Dodge fans, that's on you. It's really on you because we did see what the Toronto offense can do. Now, again, we did see what the Dodger rotation can do when they have a really good pitcher. However, when you have a really potent inning, a 9-run 6 inning in Game 1, that's really hard to forget.
It
That
is.
really is hard to just dismiss.
Yeah,
Now
it's
again,
beyond weird, like what Kiki Hernandez said. It wasn't weird. It was domination by the Blue Jays that inning. I
yes,
mean,
yes,
that's there's got to be a little bit of a psychological impact that meltdown inning, because it was a meltdown on behalf of the Dodgers and in favor of the Blue Jays. You're right. That has to leave a lasting imprint that they're not going to soon
yes.
forget. Yeah.
And
Uh,
again, really, really, really quickly with regards to the Dodger bullpen, they cannot melt down like that again. There is absolutely no room for error at this point. If they melt down like that again, that's going to be an issue. That's going to be a large issue psychological wise for Game 4, Game 5, Game 6 if it gets that far. You cannot make a mess up like that again. You cannot do that again. You
mhm.
have to be almost perfect, but you have to be really stellar, very stellar.
Yeah. Now, just quickly, you mentioned the Blue Jays hitting coach. That is David Popkins.
Yep.
And he came up through the organization like John Schneider did. Now, of course, the payrolls, this will be my last point. Of course, the payroll is massive with the Dodgers at 350 million per year AAV. But the Blue Jays are also quite large at 250 million. Now, it's quite a bit less than the Dodgers, but it's still a substantial payroll. So it's not so much a David versus Goliath situation. And also, the Dodgers have on the field and in their coaching staff homegrown talent, right? People who have come up through their system in their starting lineup. They've got Will Smith, they've got Andy Paez, they've got Max Muncy, all in the starting lineup. And the Blue Jays have homegrown talent in their starting lineup as well. So it's not so much one bot team against, a homegrown team. Both teams have
Mhm.
key impact players that they've acquired through free agency, and they've got homegrown talent that they've brought up through the system. So it's just two great teams facing off. And man, oh man, I hope that they go towards those magical two words and that we can have one more episode leading into those magical two words, Game 7. That's what I hope happens
Oh,
with this series. We'll see. We'll see.
absolutely. I would love for the series to go to Game 7. I think that would be fantastic for baseball, fantastic for all fans, even. Everybody wants to see a Game 7 World Series, Game 7 in the World Series. Everybody would like to see the magic that happens. I mean, it would be wonderful, especially with these two teams. It would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our show. So thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget, Game 3 of the World Series will take place tomorrow night, Monday night, Game 4, Tuesday night, and Game 5, Wednesday night, all in Los Angeles. Again, the series is tied 1-1, so anything can happen. It can go either which way, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be a really, really wonderful watch. I encourage
Absolutely.
every single baseball fan to watch it. It's going to be a really beautiful thing. So again, for Doug and I here at Stadium Rant and for Dirty Leather, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday evening, and please make sure to tune into, excuse me, the World Series for the next couple of days. You will not want to miss it. Take care,
Yeah.
y'all.
Must see. Bye for now.